Please listen carefully.
CoCo.
Welcome to the CoCo Crew Podcast. A delicious adventure into the world of retro computing news and information. Featuring the Tandy Color Computer.
Hey, you got your CoCo 3 yet?
CoCo.
All right. Welcome, CoCo Cruisers. You're listening to the CoCo Crew Podcast, episode 94. Let's see, I am John Linville. I'm joined by my host. Let's see, we've got Neil Blanchard. Hello, Neil.
Hello, John, and everyone listening.
Rowan. Hello, Mike.
Hello, CoCo Cruisers.
Of course, Boise Pete. Hello, Boise.
CoCo forever.
All right. So, things are moving along. Let's see, CoCoFEST is coming up in about a month. So, looking forward to that, I'm sure. At least those of us going, I guess. Tandy Assembly is, another 6 months or so away. So, that'll be fun for sure. Let's see, what about any projects? Who's doing something? Anyone working on anything?
I kind of dropped the ball on the FNX 6809 for the F256 Junior. We're in the middle of some stuff here that just keeps me so busy, but I need to pick that back up. That's not quite CoCo related, but it is 6809 related.
Sure. You got that in hand now?
I do. I have the machine in hand. I actually have the port done in the sense that I have a port of Nitrous 9, and I have the modules. I just need to come up with a good way to load the modules into the system, given how the memory is arranged and the flash is arranged. To bootstrap the system. I have an idea on how to do that. I just haven't tested it out yet.
Sure. Cool. Sounds like good progress. Okay, so what about anybody buy anything on eBay or any other acquisitions?
I think you did, John.
Yeah, I understand you made an incredible purchase.
Probably dumb.
Infamous purchase, we'll put it that way.
Yeah, it kind of rewarded somebody's long-term greed, I think is what it amounts to. But at least I got them to back off the price a bit. So yeah, those of you who have heard over the course of this podcast, we've occasionally poked fun at someone's eBay listing for a CoCo 2 with a New York Times property tag on it, and the person seemed to think it made the value of the piece a lot more than I think what most of us would think. Anyway, I've kind of got a hint from eBay. I think that they had dropped the price, and I made them an offer that was a little more reasonable, in my opinion, and I guess they agreed, and so I ended up with it. So the New York Times CoCo listing is no longer on eBay. I can still see it. I can still see it, of course, but since I bought it. But anyway, I have that and the magical water controller or whatever the add-on pack is supposed to be, which is mostly just a matter of opto-isolator circuits connected to a DB25 connector. But
did it control something? Did it control a water cooler at the New York Times or something?
Well, let's see what it is. That was sort of alleged, I think. An equipment rack where it was being used as a process controller. The other units in the rack had something to do with regulating the flow of water. Presumably, it had something to do with water. I have no idea if it was actually at the New York Times or even a subsidiary, or I have no idea what kind of offices they have around the country, but they may have more than just places in New York City itself. Anyway, whether or not this was ever actually possessed by what they call the Gray Lady, I have no idea. I suspect somebody found a sticker somewhere and stuck it on something they had because they thought it was funny. There is like you said, it's a property control sticker or whatever, but there's no number actually embossed or even penciled in, so it kind of makes me think it just was a sticker off of a roll of some sort, and somehow made it onto this CoCo, and years later inflated the value in someone's mind, and eventually I bought it. So anyway, anyone else buy anything cool recently? No, I win on that one. Neil, you trying to break in?
Yeah, I was just going to say we can't match the New York Times CoCo.
So
I
anyway,
got some Washington Post CoCo next week, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe a Twitter CoCo or something. That would be funny.
I can't believe that was listed since 2015.
Well, how about that? All right, well, that'll probably do it for an introduction for episode 94. So why don't we take a little break here, and we'll be back with some announcements.
Since 1994, Cloud9 has made cool stuff for your color computer. Now Cloud9 is proud to announce the 2MB Triad Plus memory expansion board. The Triad Plus works in two ways. Purchase just the Triad Plus board to expand your Color Computer 3 from 128K to 512K of RAM. Or add the new Protector Plus MMU to access the full 2 megabytes of static RAM aboard the Triad Plus. And the Protector Plus MMU utilizes full buffering to protect your CPU. Unlike previous 2 megabyte memory expansions for the CoCo 3, the Triad Plus operates seamlessly without the need for special patches, configuration, or workarounds. Games like Donkey Kong Remix and Sierra Adventure games simply work without hassle. And the Triad Plus will reduce your CoCo's power consumption and heat generation. The Triad Plus and Protector Plus MMU, only from the innovative engineering of Cloud9. Cool stuff for your color computer. Visit cloud9tech.com for details.
All right, CoCo Cruisers, now it's time for announcements. You are listening to the CoCo Crew Podcast. We are available on Twitter with the Twitter handle of @CoCo Crew Podcast or @CoCoCrewPodcast. We also are available on Facebook. We have a Facebook group called the CoCo Crew Podcast. We are, of course, a podcast. And if you go to CoCoCrew.org, you can find a RSS feed. And if you're not quite so inclined, you can find us available through Acast or through Google Play. Those are as the podcasts or download the episodes to listen to offline. And of course, if you just want to listen online, we're available on Spotify for streaming, of course, streaming through Stitcher and through TuneIn. For some time we've taken all of our audio podcasts and done some conversions on them to produce a video version, which we upload to YouTube. The link is in the show notes for a playlist there if you prefer to access the podcast through YouTube. Or the main advantage to using YouTube is they actually generate pretty good subtitles automatically. So if you have any trouble, if you have any problems with your hearing, or if perhaps English first language, some people say it's a little bit easier to follow the podcast using subtitles. In that case, you may want to try to consume the podcast through YouTube. We are a member of the Throwback Network, which is a list of retro-themed podcasts kind of centered around 80s culture. So if you are all caught up on the CoCo Crew Podcast and looking for something else to listen to, then we recommend that you check out the Throwback Network. Also, we are listed on the Game by Game Podcast Information Hub. This also is a list of retro-themed podcasts, but in this case, the theme is a little more centered on game technology, computing, that sort of stuff. So the podcasts listed there cover various 80s era home computers and or game consoles. So again, if you are caught up on the CoCo Crew Podcast and looking for something else to listen to, we recommend that you check out the Game by Game Podcast Information Hub. Audio for the CoCo Crew Podcast is hosted by Anchor by Spotify, which now I recently got an email about that. I think that's changing its name. Spotify something else. Does anyone remember? Guess not.
Yeah, I don't remember. I don't remember either. Yeah, I forget what it changed to. Podcast, Spotify or Spotify Podcast, something like that.
So Spotify Podcast, whatever. It was Anchor by Spotify, and I think the link is still valid in the show notes. So if you need to know, feel free to reach out. We'll straighten you up. If you do want to reach out to the host of the CoCo Crew podcast, then via email, we have 3 addresses that you can use that'll reach all of the hosts. These are show, SHOW, at CoCoCrew.org. That's @ CoCocrew.org. Also, we have podcast, PODCAST, at CoCoCrew.org. And feedback, FEEDBACK, at CoCoCrew.org. And if for some reason you want to send email but just to one of the hosts, then we each have an email address available for that. I'm available as John, JOHN, at CoCoCrew.org. Neil, of course, is Neil, NEIL, at CoCoCrew.org. Mike is Mike, MIKE, at CoCoCrew.org. And Boise is Boise, BOISY, at CoCoCrew.org. All right, that's the end of our standard announcements. Here we've got a few announcements for events happening in real life that we think might be of interest to our listeners. So let's see, coming up April 14th through the 16th of 2023, we have Vintage Computer Festival East. Themes for this year: number 1, computers in education; number 2, keeping vintage computing alive. This will be held at the InfoAge Science Center and History Museums on Marconi Road in Wall, New Jersey.
I shall be there.
Yeah, so then you'll be able to see Boise. It's always been a pretty good event that I've been a few times myself. And you hit upon the Jersey Shore and experience the historical sites there and visit in their museums, or technology-oriented museums, and kind of a cool event. So if you're a nerd, so which I guess I am. Anyway, so that's April 14th, 15th, and 16th of 2023, Vintage Computer Festival East. All right, so coming up April 22nd to 23rd, 2023, we have the 31st annual Last Chicago CoCoFEST. This will be the CoCo event put on by the Glenside Color Computer Club in the Chicago area. This is going to be held at the Holiday Inn and Suites, Chicago, at Carroll Stream, in Carroll Stream, Illinois. Have not been to the venue, then the event will run similarly to previous events. Hopefully it'll be a good time. Certainly been the core event for the CoCo community for a long time, and may continue to be for some time. So I wish they had a clever write-up for, as a hook to get people to come. So all I can do is tell you that I've been there many times myself, not to this location, but to this event. All of us have been to this event, and this is kind of the event that got us all together. So if you're a CoCo person, this should probably be something on your calendar. So figure out how to plan and get there. Like I said, it'll be this month, so see you there. All right, let's see. Coming up April 29th to 30th of 2023, we have the Indie Classic Computer and Video Game Expo coming up in Indianapolis, Indiana. So I think this is, Randy Kindig is of Floppy Days and Other Podcasts, is a primary organizer of this. I'm sure there'll be a lot of good participation and cool retro stuff. Let's see, it says, okay, Glenside guys, listen, this is what I'm talking about. You should have something like this for CoCoFest on your website. Indie Classic is a 2-day expo featuring retro and vintage arcade games, gaming competitions, computer and console exhibits, buy, sell, trade with anyone, anytime, no table required. Meet Randy Kindig, host of the Floppy Days Vintage Computing Podcast and co-host of Antic, the Atari 8-bit podcast. So, there you go, Glenside. There's something to aspire to. Give us a blurb like that on your website so I can have something to say when I get to announcing your event. So anyway, there you go. The Indie Classic Computer and Video Game Expo, April 29th to 30th in Indianapolis, Indiana. All right, let's see, moving on. Okay, now we've got June 23rd to the 25th of 2023. BoatFest 2023. So this is Amiga DOS Retro Gaming presents BoatFest 2023, a vintage computer exposition in Hurricane, West Virginia. Featuring Commodore 64, Amiga, TRS-80 CoCo, Apple Macintosh, Amstrad ZBC, Atari ST, Apple II, ZX Spectrum, Coleco Atom, Atari 1200 XL, Nintendo, Sega, 3DO, Vectrix, and many more. 3 days of peace and micros. So this is, I think, their second year of this event. Must have been successful enough the first year to have another one. Haven't heard a report of anyone that did go that I can think of, but I assume it's a success. So if it's near you, if you're somewhere near West Virginia and looking for something to do towards the end of June, then I recommend you check it out. All right, coming up, so July 22nd to the 23rd, 2023, we have Classic Game Fest, the biggest retro gaming event in Texas. They do stuff big in Texas. Hopefully, if nothing else, you'll be able to get some good beef brisket barbecue. See, well, the website's here. There's a link in the show notes. Let's see, info. Maybe I can find the blurb there. It's at the Palmer Event Center. Okay, well, let's see. Enjoy 75,000 plus square feet of retro video games and fun at the Palmer Event Center, overlooking Lady Bird Lake and the downtown Austin skyline. Palmer Event Center is conveniently located only a short walk from many hotels, restaurants, bus stops, and bike rental stations. So there you go. I personally don't know a lot about this event. We did get some feedback from Brendan Donahue, who I guess is local to the Austin area, or at least close enough. He's been to this event. Sounds like a pretty cool event. So if you're in or around Austin and looking for something to do towards the end of July, then I definitely think you should check out Classic Game Fest. All right, one more. So coming up July 28th through 30th, 2023, the Southern Fried Gaming Expo, being held in Atlanta, Georgia at the Marriott Renaissance Waverly. The Southern Fried Gaming Expo features more than 300 arcade and pinball machines, dozens of new and retro console systems, a massive tabletop library, RPGs, wrestling, music, tournaments, a vendor expo, exciting panel sessions, guest speakers, and so much more. Game all weekend at #SFGE 2023. So when it says wrestling, I assume that is something for you to watch, not something for you to do. Well, the idea is a bunch of retro computing geeks stripping down and ripping the shirts off and hitting each other with chairs or something like that. Sounds kind of fun.
Sounds like CoCoFEST to me.
Yeah, exactly. CoCoFEST of old. But again, so if you're in the southeast part of the United States or somewhere reasonable to Atlanta at the end of July looking for something retro to do, then we recommend that you check out Southern Fried Gaming Expo. All right, that is the end of my list. So we're going to take another little break, and then we'll be back with the news.
Build performance into your system with OS 9 software tools from Microware. Unix-based, multitasking, modular, and versatile. These key features are some of the reasons why more 6809 computer manufacturers have selected OS 9 as their standard operating system than any other. OS 9 has been put to the test by thousands of users in almost every conceivable computer application in business, science, industry, education, and government. Choose from powerful development tools such as OS 9 Pascal Language Compiler, the most complete and versatile Pascal available for the 6809. CIS COBOL Compiler, ideal for most demanding business applications featuring ISAM. Basic 09 Structured Basic Interactive Compiler, fastest and most comprehensive full basic language available for the 6809. And the C Language Compiler, complete implementation of the Unix version 7 C language, includes integer, character, signed, unsigned, float, and long data types. For more information, contact your computer supplier or contact us directly at Microware Systems Corporation, 5835 Grand Avenue, Des Moines, Iowa.
Unix is a trademark of Bell Laboratories. CIS COBOL is a trademark of Microfocus Incorporated. OS 9 and Basic 09 are trademarks of Microware and Motorola Incorporated.
All right, CoCo Cruisers, welcome back. Now it's time for the news.
The first news item is actually a three-parter YouTube series by Ken Waters. You have a real CoCo 1 or 2 Now what? Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3. This is Ken Waters, a Canadian CoCo enthusiast, who is talking about, for people who are new to the CoCo, or maybe just got a CoCo, what is a color computer, how to hook it up to a TV, what are the various parts inside. So it's sort of an intro video or set of videos for CoCo newcomers. The next news item is one that is near and dear to my heart. CMOC 0.1.81 is out. Fixes for some C functions under OS 9 by Mr. Pierre Sarrazin, which is the author of CMOC. This is a post that looks like to the CoCo list. He fixes some bugs in various string compare functions in OS 9. Adds a square root function. Has some optimizations and minor fixes. Continues to make this C compiler a very good cross compiler for the CoCo. I've used it. I like it. I recommend you use it. The next news item is PyDriveWire version 0.6 release update, February 4th, 2023 by Mr. Michael Furman. Mikey has posted an update to PyDriveWire. It looks like he has it running on macOS or macOS Apple Silicon, which is nice. And I don't see any specifics on the webpage about what the changes are, but he's always improving the software, and it's very good to see that, given the fact that DriveWire is near and dear to my heart. He also talks about the last Python 2 edition and a Windows version upload to GitHub for a package. So he continues to work on this, which is very nice. Thank you, Mikey.
Yeah, it's a great implementation of DriveWire for sure.
Absolutely.
Not totally in the Python camp. You probably have heard of the language. They did something really weird with the Python open source community. They forked Python between version 2 and version 3 in slightly incompatible, or maybe more than slightly incompatible ways. And so that's part of his announcement, is that this is his last version that will work with Python 2. It's probably about the right time anyway, but I think a lot of at least the Linux distributions have largely switched over to Python 3 by default. If you're running, I'm not sure how they do stuff on Windows, or if you have an older edition or if you're managing just a local install of Python, then you may want to look at updating on that one.
All right. The next news item is Create Video Games on TRS-80 CoCo by Marco Bedaletti. This is a Facebook post. Marco is talking about something called, is that Micro G Basic or UG Basic?
Yeah, I think it's UG Basic, yeah.
UG Basic, yeah. I didn't know if he was trying to use the micro symbol there, using it. But anyway, looks like it has an IDE. And don't know much about it, John. What can you tell us?
Nothing. I guess it's it's a version of Basic. It's some sort of I think it's compiled, and it's just another language. If you're looking for a way to write stuff that'll run on the CoCo, it's another one of those kind of attempts we see of somebody who's developed a programming environment, and theoretically they've targeted it to multiple targets. So depending on how stuff works, you could write a program and deploy it to the CoCo as well as whatever other targets he's got. How well that works, I think it might be a matter of opinion. I don't know. I'm not trying to down it. I just don't know. Maybe I'm a little skeptical, but it may be a great way to work with it. And if nothing else, you could write programs in this new language. Maybe it's be your new hobby.
Well, it's always good and fun to explore languages, both interpretive and compile. So I'm glad to see that. Good work. The next news item is MM1 Software Preservation Spreadsheet by Joel Avey. This is a Facebook post on, surprise, I didn't realize this existed, a MM1 Multimedia One Computer Facebook group. Joel is using a spreadsheet to track software, I guess, that was MM1 specific. I had an MM1 back in the mid-90s. Good times with that machine, but I let it go. And, it was a fun OS 968K machine. What can I say? The next news item is HB6809 Homebrew Computer by Dave Collins. It's on Hackaday. This is and I'm just looking at this closely, like a Homebrew 6809 computer. I don't recognize the board. It says HB6809 Minimal Expansion Computer. Has a somewhat larger board. Looks like a 16K of ROM, 32K of RAM, prototyping space. Looks like it has an expansion bus. John, what can you glean from this thing?
Pretty much nothing other than what you've described. I mean, like you said, there's an expansion area if you want to add your own circuits. There's also some connectors there. You can add daughter boards. Looks like it could be something fun to play with, especially if you don't have anything similar yourself. If you're interested in doing a little mix of software and hardware development. Looks like a cool project. It's pretty well documented there, so could be a good way to get your feet wet on this sort of thing if you're interested.
Yeah, I see there's a real 6809, not E, but 6809P, CPU. Very nice. It's always good to see more 6809, like more cowbell.
Yeah.
Okay, the next news item is yet another compiler, Small C68XX, Small C for the Motorola 68XX family under Linux by Neil Cherry. This is a GitHub link to a GitHub project that Neil has put together for looks like a small C compiler that supports the 6809, the 6800. Looks like he's even doing some other CPUs there. Again, fun languages. This is some good stuff. I enjoy seeing people working on languages, cross compilers for the CoCo or the 6809. Very good work.
Yeah, this is I think he's basically collecting some historical source code. And of course, like I said, it's small C, but it's not just C that's small, but literally it's a C-like language that's not quite the same as regular C. But I can't really tell you all the differences. There were some books published that kind of documented that, but it was kind of from back in the day when people were trying to experiment with this sort of stuff and figure out how to get compilers to run on their tiny machines. And
yeah,
in this case,
the way to do that was to shrink the language, right? Shrink the language surface. Yeah.
So anyway, if you're interested in small C, then this might be a way to play with the language and see, to get past some of the initial hurdles. I think Neil's going to have to take care of to have a credible project. So.
Nice. The next news item is completed my 6809 calculator project, 16-bit addition and subtraction, 8-bit multiplication, division, and square root by Alexander Sirondenko. This is Sidorenko. This is looks like a board. I guess it's a prototyping board. It looks like it has basically it's a calculator. It has calculator keypad, some digit readouts, a 6809. I mean, this is, again, another 6809 project. Cool, fun, great to see something like this. This is just, it's great stuff.
Yeah, pretty cool. It's like I said, it's basically circuits on a proto board. It looks like a lot of work for what you got, in my opinion, but if it's your kind of project, it could be. It's pretty well done. It's nice that he completed it and shared it, so it's kind of cool that way.
Yeah. I think the 6809 would have made a great CPU for like a graphic calculator.
Oh, sure.
Is this you? Oh my God, I've got 40 pages to print! Tired of waiting on a slow serial attached printer? End the waiting with Blue Streak Ultima, the ultimate serial to parallel adapter. Wow, I'll have this report ready in time for the meeting. Just connect Blue Streak Ultima to your CoCo's built-in serial port and connect the other end to any printer with a 36-pin Centronics-compatible parallel printer port. Blue Streak Ultima works with any version CoCo. 7 switchable baud rates, 300 to 19.2. Select the desired baud rate with the easy-to-use selector knob. No jumpers, no hassle, just faster printing. Try it on your system for 30 days, risk-free. If you're not totally satisfied with the performance of Blue Streak Ultima, return it for a full refund. Blue Streak Ultima comes with a 1-year warranty and costs just $39.95. Blue Streak Ultima, the ultimate serial-to-parallel converter.
All right, our next news article is whip this up as my next step in my disk formatting venture. He has other posts, but what this is it's a flipper template created by John Zizafolo. Hope I'm pronouncing your last name correctly.
No idea.
But yeah, he's gone down a really cool venture here on floppy disks. So he's created a flipper template which you can make flippies out of. So you put it over a disk and you can notch out the side and the index hole, so you can get 2 disks out of one. I remember that from back in the day. We used to do stuff like that. And he's also created, in another post here, by the way, these posts are on the TRS-80 Color Computer Facebook group, disk labels that you can put on your floppy disks. So they use the Avery, standard Avery labels, and it prints nice-looking diskette labels. So there you go. If you're still into floppy disks, now you can get right back into it and get some.
Before it's too late.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I still like the original floppies.
Absolutely, yeah.
You can check that out. All right, our next news article is from Nick Bild. Pico-ROM emulates ROM chips to allow for rapid development of retro computer software. This is really cool. So it seems like an inexpensive way, because I know you can buy devices that do this. So you can emulate ROM chips on various retro machines, just using a Raspberry Pi Pico. I don't know the cost involved on that Raspberry Pi version, but I'm sure it's a lot cheaper than buying an actual ROM emulator.
Yeah, they're really cheap.
That's cool to see.
Does look like a lot of work.
Yeah.
All those wires.
Yeah, looking at that now here on the GitHub page. But that's a cool project if you want to venture down that. Either way, it's neat to see. All right, next news article is from Nicholas Ervik Gronaboom. Again, I'm really hoping I'm pronouncing your name right. Today I added the CoCo 3 to the list of official supported systems in TRSE, which is the Turbo Rascal, and it is the first 6809 system that I've added. So there you go. We have 6809 support in the development system here.
Yep, pretty cool.
Yeah, and he's also on this post here, has a graphical tech demo. Pretty impressive. Nice animation. Looks like something Simon Jonasson would do. So you can see the capabilities of it here. All right, next one for the news section is from Chet Simpson. I'm finally close to finishing up the unit tests for the expression evaluator in the refractored version of the Chaos Assembler. So, not sure if you've been following that one, John.
Yeah, I don't know a lot about the specifics, but it's part of his code development arsenal there that he's been spiffing up and making available.
I think he's looking for early testers as well, so interested.
Yeah, he's looking for volunteers to hammer on it with well-formed and ill-formed code and expressions.
Yeah, it's great to see. Chet's been busy. All right, plethora of news articles here from Jim Gary. First one here, he's been trying to convert a Gin Rummy program to the MC10, but he needs someone who knows how to play the game to test it. Well, that could be something you can help out with.
Kind of funny to think.
Yeah.
Gin Rummy is fallen so far that now you can't find anybody who knows how to play it. I'm sure you can find somebody, but...
Yeah. Here's another one here. He's got another Byte program type-in meant to demonstrate simple AI techniques. Hockman of Dindran for the TRS-80 MC10. Fall from 20 Programs. It's a French book for the Alice computer. Doctor Who Adventure. Jeremy Guggenheim. Camel Creative Computing from 1979.
Pretty cool looking. Very, very reminiscent of Atari adventure game.
Yeah,
that's cool. Yeah, I remember playing that. So there you go. You got quite a few things from Jim Gary to check out. All right, next news articles from Paulo Garcia. UG Basic, a basic compiler for Commodore and Atari and CoCo and ...
So hopefully Paulo's given us a good overview of UG Basic there. So if you're interested, kind of goes along with that Marcos Bedaletti link that Boise had.
Right. Yeah, that's great. All right, next up, we have Alan Huffman. A whole bunch from him. He's busy here, demonstrating, looks like he's going through on Chapter 10 here. It's a whole series here. Files, command, and memory in CoCo Disk Basic. Write versus print in CoCo Basic. Color Basic program line info dump program. And then the last one is, these lines are just too long for Color Basic. So it's an in-depth read. And that's, of course, on Alan's website.
Alan kind of doing what he does, where he kind of takes some feature of CoCo Basic and digs into it and tells you probably more about it than you need to know, but it's still kind of interesting.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
Yeah, thorough.
Yeah, it's great information. All right, the next one up here, this is kind of cool, from Henry Reitveld, a fellow Canadian. He's always messing around with retro hardware, so we got to give him that. This one is playing MIDI files on my repacked Handy Color Computer 3 and capturing the audio on his Coleco Adams Dynamite Sound Digitizer cart. So that's a YouTube video he's created showing this in progress here. That's pretty cool.
Pretty neat. Kind of a because I can, I guess. But it's sometimes you need a reason to play with your stuff. So there you go.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Telewriter 64, the color computer word processor. 3 display formats, 51, 64, or 85 columns by 24 lines. True lowercase characters. User-friendly full-screen editor. Right justification. Easy hyphenation. Drives any printer. Embedded format and control codes. Runs in 16K, 32K, or 64K, with or without extended color basic. Menu-driven disk and cassette I/O. No hardware modifications necessary. So simple to use, it makes writing fun. Telewriter 64 can display more text on the screen than the Apple II, Atari, TI, VIC, or even the TRS-80 Model 3. Telewriter 64 surpasses all others for user-friendliness and pure power. Step up to professional word processing on the low-cost TRS-80 color computer. Telewriter 64, just $49.95 for cassette or $59.95 for disc. Telewriter 64 from Cognitech.
All right. Okay, moving on. We've got a link to an email thread started by Don Barber. Don't know a lot about Don. I think he may be a little new to the community, or at least newly surfaced in the community, I think, or maybe I've just forgotten. Anyway, his email thread is about the AM9511. That's a designation for an old chip. AM9511 arithmetic processing unit cartridge pack for the color computer. So he's taken this old chip and put it on a card that you can plug into the CoCo. And so using that, you can basically offload certain math functions, specifically the multiply, division, sine, cosine, tangent, arcsine, arccosine, arctangent, exponent, power, square root, natural logarithm, and supporting functions. So if you have a need to do those math operations in your programs, you can write a program that runs on the CoCo and offloads some or all of that math to this piece of hardware and make it run a little faster, probably significantly faster. I have no idea how many people need to do that math on the CoCo, but if you do, this is probably a good way to get it done. So he has a thread on the CoCo mailing list. Not sure how far along you went with it. I think some people were asking for to buy PCBs and parts kits from him at CoCoFEST. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, you may want to reach out to Don. He seemed amenable to that. And so best of luck, and we'll see what happens. Pretty cool. All right. Let's see. The next link is from a John Parker, who must be from somewhere where PAL is sort of the native video format, and he's doing a PAL to NTSC conversion on a CoCo. So I guess he had a PAL CoCo and wanted to make it work or output NTSC video, probably so that he could see the NTSC artifacts, colors, as were so popular in various CoCo games. So he has kind of documented his process, has some pictures and some of the modifications he made to his CoCo, and you can see some of the results he's gotten. And looks like it was a success, so pretty cool. And for those who have wondered, if you're in a PAL area, but you are always kind of wondering what the NTSC artifacting was all about, this is a way you can get it without having to pay for shipping across the Atlantic. So you may want to check that out if that's you. All right, so let's see. Moving on, we've got several posts from Carl England on let's see, a couple of subjects, I guess. Let's see. One, he says he uploaded SDC Magic to the CoCo archive, which is essentially a version of backup Magic, but it copies physical copy protected disks to SDC disk images. And I think you want to use that. There turns out to be an upgrade to the SDC firmware that you're going to need, which I think is the gist of his second link there is, ouch, I found a flaw in SDC DOS when it comes to formatting SDF disks. Format a track that contains a sector number 247. The sector table will be corrupted, possibly making the entire track unreadable. So I think that's the report that prompted there to be a new SDC DOS release or SDC firmware release. If you, especially if you need to use Carl's utility, you need to track down the SDC DOS update. And I don't think I have a link in the show notes, but the information is available if you Google for it. All right, so let's see. Moving on to the next one. It says he just uploaded Crush to the archive. Crush is a compression utility for basic programs. After removing unnecessary bytes, the program lines will be packed. Program lines can be up to 30,000 bytes in length. So I'm not sure why you need a basic program line that long, unless you're doing a 10-line basic program maybe. But if you haven't needed something like that, Carl has made his utility available. I guess this is a utility with a pedigree back to the days when the CoCo was getting a little old, but not quite dead yet. So
that kind of changes the game for one-liner.
Yeah, no doubt. And of course, then he has an updated. His last link is, "Oops, I uploaded Crush to the archive, and then discovered a major bug. I've just uploaded version 1.3, which eliminates the bug. So if you wanting to use Crush, you may want to make sure that you've got version 1.3. And moving on, we've got a link to a YouTube video from someone on YouTube that goes by, the channel name is Kick Rock and Roll. Don't know anything about the channel. The video is basically kind of an introduction to the MC10. If you're listening to this podcast, there's a pretty good chance that you know as much about the MC10 as what will be revealed in that video. But there might be something you didn't already know, and it's always gratifying to see somebody pay attention to one of our beloved machines.
Learn how to use your computer for more than just games with Hot CoCo Magazine. Hot CoCo is packed with business application programs, home management help, programming tips and tutorials, product reviews, and more. Subscribe for just $24.97 for 12 issues. That's 30% off the newsstand price. Let Hot CoCo show you how much time you can save with your color computer. And save even more time with Instant CoCo, the cassette version of Hot CoCo Magazine, containing all of the programs that appear in the issue. See the latest issue of Hot CoCo Magazine for details. Hot CoCo, available at fine retailers everywhere.
Okay, this next one is from Vern's Misadventures at YouTube. TRS-80 MC10 Part 2 MCX32 SD setup in use. So I think we've seen some other of a couple of other Vern's videos here recently, and so it's a little bit different, pretty entertaining. But he just walks through the setup of the MCX32 SD, which is an interface for the MC10 that allows you to extends the BASIC a little bit and allows you to access files on an SD card. So cool video, definitely worth checking it out. And our next one is from Tech Time Traveler at YouTube. Please stop doing this to old computers. So this is kind of it's somewhat lengthy, but he doesn't go on too much of a tirade. But he works with very old retro computers, and I think in this case there was a keyboard from a computer system from the 60s. And it's very difficult to find parts for something that old and that unique. And he was interested in obtaining this keyboard and makes reference to those keyboard guys who, want to take some old keyboard and convert it to use it on their modern computer or do some kind of, steampunk
Right.
kind of stuff. And his irritation at, I'm trying to restore an old computer and you're jacking the price up to $500 for this keyboard. And, there's only two left in the universe. And so, and you're going to gut it. And I want to preserve it.
Hook it up to your ZX81.
Right.
Yeah, that's sacrilege.
He does spend time talking about that 60 system and the keyboard and as well. So yeah, it's definitely worth checking out that video.
Well, I do think a lot of people that have old computers, maybe they vaguely remember their PC where you could swap keyboards willy-nilly, go get them down at the corner store for $10 or whatever and plug them in, they just work. And so they may just be thinking, well, this keyboard's worthless anyway, so you don't need it, you just need a computer. But that's not really true in the case of some especially older machines.
Very true. All right. The next one here is from soigenesis.com. Dial-a-ROM for your vintage computers. So a lot of the old, I think this is particularly pointed at the Tandy 100 and those types of computers that had a ROM slot, or you could actually buy different programs and things on a ROM, plug them in to those portable computers, the early ones. And this is a device that lets you, have several ROM images. You can plug it in and just use like a dial to dial which ROM you want. So it saves a lot of wear and tear on your vintage computer if you're wanting to use some of these ROM programs, or maybe even roll your own. So pretty cool device. And we have another one here from Tube Time US at YouTube. The 6502 Rotate Right Myth. And this is a fairly in-depth, lengthy video, but it talks about kind of unwraps the myth and the reality of the early versions of the 6502 had a problem with the rotate right, and kind of talks about the history of it. And it was fixed, of course, in later versions of 6502, but the first releases of them had this issue. And of course, the person who created the 6502 and developed the code for rotate right was saying, no, the rotate right has always worked. That wasn't what the issue was. So if you're a 6502 fan and or just looking for a good technical story and a little history on the 6502, then definitely check this out.
Yeah, it's interesting. Since someone is trying to set the record straight, I think we may have touched on this as some other stuff in the past. So rather than continue to perpetrate a lie or whatever, at least help them get the story out. That that original 6502, it didn't rotate right, didn't work just because it didn't have one. So, which is a little weird that they didn't think they needed one, but I guess they didn't. And it was kind of neat too. They kind of described how they basically had to add an extra control line, and they actually show some of the chip layout and how they changed it, and how it was addressed. Pretty cool.
You're listening to the CoCo Crew Podcast, a delicious adventure into the world of retro computing news and information. Featuring Tandy Color Computer.
So moving on, we got one from Tom Halwerda. Guess that's how you say it. He runs a little site called OS News, which often has some retro stuff on it. And so the The title of the link here says, COBOL, you're thinking about it wrong. So, COBOL is like catnip for me when coming up with the news items. That if I see a link to COBOL, I seem to be compelled to include them. And so that's how that got here. So the body of the article here says, headlines might indicate the language has fallen into disfavor, but the amount of COBOL in use continues to grow, with 800 billion lines running in production systems daily, according to a global survey conducted last year by enterprise software firm Microfocus. Now, as an aside, Microfocus, they're pretty much known for Microfocus COBOL, so they have a certain it benefits them for you to think that COBOL is popular. So you may want to take this with a grain of salt, but according to Microfocus, COBOL is considered strategic by 92% of survey respondents, and over half said they expect their organizations to keep running their COBOL applications for at least another 10 years. So there you go, another one. COBOL's not quite as dead as you might think story. So fun. All right, moving on. The next link, it comes from Al Williams at Hackaday. His title there, Too Cool for 8-Bit Retro? Try 1-Bit Gaming. So he's got a little story there. It shows someone's got a PCB with a circuit built around a Motorola MC14500B, which is apparently a 1-bit CPU. So if you think 8 bits is a little hard to do much of anything with, or constricting, imagine trying to do all your math 1 bit at a time. Assume that he's not only built the circuit but also written some of these programs that you can see here. Pretty hardcore, but if that kind of thing appeals to you, you may want to check it out and see what he's done and how he's using those switches on his board to play these games. So kind of neat. Check it out. All right, let's see. The next link it's a YouTube link that comes from CoCo Strangiato. Don't know anything about CoCo Strangiato, but he's got a YouTube channel, so you may want to check it out. He has a set of modifications that he's calling the CoCo 3P, which I'm guessing gives a certain amount of portability to a CoCo 3. So if you're hoping to make a laptop around a CoCo 3, or otherwise if you're feeling too encumbered by your CoCo 3 sitting on your desk or whatever else, you may want to check this out, see how you can give it a little more freedom. Your mileage may vary. All right, so let's see. My last link, it's a mail thread from the DC Talk mailing list at classiccomp.org. Kind of interesting because it relates to a legal case, and you can read it's a lengthy thread. That basically it has to do with a legal appeal that someone was convicted of a rape. As part of the appeals process, they recovered a diskette that had the equivalent of the notes or whatever was actually typed in by the stenographer, the person recording the court proceedings, with that weird little corded keyboard that you see them sitting there under the judge's bench sometimes. So somehow, as part of the appeals process, they had a diskette with this record. They wanted to be able to read the diskette and get the original transcript, but no one had the software or even the hardware, I guess, to read this. And so it was a little detective case, and a digital detective case, so to speak. And anyway, sounds kind of interesting. You may want to check it out if you're interested in that kind of whodunit stuff, or kind of Raiders of the Lost Ark style investigation in the digital world.
Yeah, it made me feel old because this was written on a DEC PDP-11 running RSX-11, which is an operating system I used.
Right.
This commercial's going out to you, Boise.
CoCo 2, c'est le coq champignon, des micros et donne le pion. Pour le jeu, il est pas batable, les études, c'est pas bizarre. L'expansion, il a ça, les commandes, tu vas voir ça. Notre CoCo est programmable, pour tes cours, c'est bien serviable. CoCo 2 de Radio Shack, ton affaire est dans le sac.
Un ordinateur couleur qui a de la personnalité. Le CoCo 2 de Radio Shack. En solde pour Noël à partir de 149,95.
CoCo 2 de Radio Shack, ton affaire est dans le sac, c'est toi et CoCo 2.
Okay, our next one is from the Taylor and Amy show at YouTube, the TRS-80 MC10 laptop. So this video is shows an MC10 with a small screen attached to it. Well, I guess if you put a hinge on a display, it's considered a laptop.
Or a doorstop.
I mean, the craftsmanship is, remarkable. They pieced together some hinges and a small LCD and maybe some Lego pieces, and then they actually putting that on basically blocked the memory or the MCX32 from being able to be installed. So they kind of wired up a cable to basically an extension cable to let them relocate the MCX32 SD, and they made it work. It's kind of, if not just for the pure cheek of it, certainly not practical, but pretty neat that they could pull that off. More effort than I would probably put into it, but still kind of cool. So interesting to watch.
That's definitely, you always learn something by, pushing that envelope and trying things that may seem ludicrous on the surface, but like you said, you can discover, hey, this actually works. This next one's from Dave Roundtree at Hackaday. Paramedic Press unravels the JPEG format. So this is pointing to an article that goes into painstaking detail about the JPEG format. It looks pretty good. I haven't taken the time to go through it, but I'm definitely going to go back when I've got some more time. So it looks like a very thorough explanation and understanding of the JPEG format. So if you're interested in working with graphics or pulling JPEGs into your CoCo, or taking something from your CoCo and turning it into a JPEG, you'll probably be very interested in this article. All right, this next one's from Jacopo Frisco. Why the floppy disk just won't die.
Won't die.
It won't die. There's people still using it. Of course, they're still citing the still seem to be real popular with sewing machines, certain sewing manufacturing devices, as well as the 747, which we've cited several times.
747, yeah.
Mm-hmm. But the days are numbered because they're not making floppy disks anymore. So people are going to, over time, have to convert to something to replace them. But a good article on floppy disks. And our final news article for episode 94 is from Nerdly Pleasures, the saga of the color brown in the early years of PC. Interesting article, talks about the color brown and some of the challenges of actually showing that color in early computers.
Interesting. Not necessarily applicable to the CoCo, I guess, but kind of cool. And I think somewhere buried in all that, or at least in some of the comments, if nothing else, is the revelation that brown is the same hue as orange, or orange and brown are essentially the same hue, just to different saturations. I think is true and discoverable, but not obvious. So anyway, but I'm not sure that has much to do with the technology, but it's interesting to see the technological stuff that was deemed necessary back in the day. All right, well, I guess that brings us to the end of our news segment. So why don't we play a little ceasefire, take a break. We'll be back, probably hit you with some feedback, and then maybe there'll be more.
Whoa!
What do you want, mister?
I'm looking for gold.
Shoot, mister, we ain't got no gold around these here parts. But you can look all you want.
We got plenty of lead and tin, though.
Who are you? What you got there, stranger?
It's the new J&M Systems JFD CoCo Disc Controller. It sets a new standard in performance and quality. Its built-in digital phase lock loop data separator means no need for adjustments, ever. And the card contacts, pure gold. Woo-hoo! Best of all, the JFD CoCo is plug compatible with the original CoCo and the new CoCo 2.
How much, stranger?
Just $139.
Wait, where can I get one?
From J&M Systems, Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Okay, CoCo Cruisers, now it's time for feedback. Once again, we're a little bit short on feedback. We did manage to get one that came in without too much digging. This again comes from Mr. Brian Weasler. Says, I've been enjoying your host discussions. I like Mike's point that things have always been retro. I imagine that 40 years from now, the laptop I'm using will be a collector's item to someone. Probably true, if it manages to still turn on in 40 years. Or somebody will want it and probably hail it as the first computer that ever did, TikTok or something like that. No one will say it would be true, but it'll be a good story for someone. Anyway, thanks, Brian. It's always good to hear from you. All right. Well, that's for the end of our feedback section. So, again, we'll take another break and be back with the rest of the show.
Turn any color computer with Extended Basic into a complete disk system with the new FD501 Color Thin Line Disk from Radio Shack. Store over 156K of data, write your own disk programs, or use ready-to-run software. The disk operating system is built into the program pack cartridge that connects the disk drive to your color computer. And the FD501 has room to add a second drive, providing an additional 156K of storage. This month only, purchase a 2-drive FD501 Color Thin Line Disk System for just $359.95. That's a 25% savings. Apply in-store for a CityLine revolving account and pay as low as $20 per month. The FD501 Thin Line Disk. Only from Radio Shack, a Tandy company.
All right, CoCo Cruisers, welcome back to our favorite part of the show, this little host discussion. So our topic today kind of comes out of some chatting among friends. And, our friends, of course, are CoCo people. So especially with CoCoFEST coming up, that's always an influence on our discussions, our state of mind. And so our friend is basically they have produced something in the CoCo world. It's a good something that plenty of people like to use. But consequently, there's always somebody who's a little new, or maybe not so new, but not totally experienced with this something. They're looking for support. Now, this is a free something that you can, get all the information required for it, all the software required for it. You can just download it, including documentation. But sometimes people still want a little extra help, and that's understandable. Don't fault anyone for asking for a little help. But the truth is that sometimes people want so much support on these things, especially these things that are free projects that you've kind of given to the world out of the goodness of your heart, that they sometimes it's a no good deed goes unpunished sort of situation, where you go to a public event like CoCoFEST and then people want to talk to you and basically put demands on your time for you to help them do their project based on your project, and kind of can consume all of your time that you wanted to have just to enjoy CoCoFEST for what it is. And not that you don't enjoy talking to people or helping people, but it can be overwhelming. So I don't know if that's totally summed it up. Hopefully there's left something on the table for our host to add to the discussion and maybe provide some suggestions. So what do you think? What is the right protocol? Or if you're someone who's looking for support on a free project and, you're hoping to pull someone aside at CoCoFEST, are there any precautions you should take, or anything you should do that help ensure that you're benefiting from the people that can support that project isn't stealing from their ability to enjoy CoCoFEST? Anyone want to weigh in? Go ahead.
I'll weigh in on this. I have experienced this many times in my CoCoFEST journey, and I would say that when you approach someone that you want help from that has made a project for free, and you approach them at CoCoFEST, it really helps if you have a $100 bill in your hand. No, joking aside, it can be a time suck, and I'm there to enjoy CoCoFEST. It doesn't happen much anymore, but it used to happen a lot. And I just got to the point and said, look, I'll give you 5 minutes of my time, and if we can't figure it out, you're on your own. Or if it was just, hey, explain something to me, I'd be happy to say, here's how this works or that works. But, someone comes and hands you a super ID and says, hey, I haven't touched this in a year, and I can't get a West9 to boot on it. Can you make a boot file for me? That's like a 30-minute exercise, and takes you away from other things. So my suggestion would be considerate of people's time, especially at an event where you're just there for the weekend, and that you want to enjoy it. You want them to enjoy it. You don't want them to just support you the whole time. So that's my advice.
Yeah, that seems like a good point. And like I said, when you're estimating how long it should take them to help you, you need to maybe pad the estimate of how much time it's going to take them before you ask them to donate their time to you. Maybe you should adjust your expectations a little bit, and definitely be considerate. And if it runs a little long or whatever, maybe you could suggest switching to some sort of offline chat or email.
Mm-hmm. And, because I don't know about other people, but I fly into CoCoFEST, so it takes considerable expense and time to be there for 2 days, and I want to maximize my enjoyment of the event, and that is, talking to more people, interacting with people, and not being bogged down by a problem for an extended period of time. So, and of course, we can all say no, right? We can all say, look, I don't have the time, or this is going to turn into a bit of morass. It's not going to something we can solve within a reasonable amount of time. Let's continue it, like you said, John, in chat or some other venue down the road. So,
any other thoughts, Neil? Maybe.
Yeah, I was just going to add into that. What Boise's saying is to be courteous with other people's time. But I mean, if it is something you want help with, maybe see if you can, schedule a different time, like maybe over email or a video chat, something like that. It doesn't really have to be at the fest per se.
Yeah, I think these are all great points. I would add that it's also not just at the fests where it can kind of be, super focused, but even, anybody who is taking the time and effort, you got to remember it's a hobby, but I guess there's a lot of people that are just lazy, that don't even make an effort to solve the problem on their own or to read the documentation. And it gets old very quickly when you have a large number of people coming and basically saying, do this for me, or even worse, complaining about their free product and their free support. So, it's easy to be guilty of that. I guess the new phrase will be Chat GPT as your friend.
Yeah, right. Well, like I say, the fest should be about, the fests are about communicating and coming together and talking to people, whatever, meeting new people. But ultimately, they're about making connections, but not necessarily solving everything right there. So come and make the connection, maybe introduce yourself, maybe introduce your problem in case it actually is something that they can answer quickly. But make the connection and then be prepared to take it offline, take it to email, or whatever kind of chat opportunities are available between the two of you. But like I said, to try not to demand so much of someone else's time that they don't enjoy the fest. So plus there's other people that probably want to talk to them too.
Good points.
All right, well, does that beat it to death?
The other thing I was just going to add in there real quick, What always amazes me with this retro hobby, and you see it on all different platforms, not just the CoCo, is to me the whole point of retro computing, at least for me, it's the learning aspect. Learning different operating systems, the hardware, programming if you're into that. The last thing I want to do is ask somebody for help. I want to try to solve it on my own. And you see like a lot of basic questions, on social media, asking for DOS command lists and stuff like that. I mean, it's just one Google click away. I guess people, are in the hobby for different reasons. For me, it's more educational. I like the challenge of learning something new.
Right. So there can be an impedance mismatch there where, somebody comes to you with what seems like, an obvious thing where they could have just looked at page 3 of the manual and there it was, but for some reason they didn't. Other people will say that they're just here to have fun. They don't want a homework assignment for everything they want to do. And can't you just tell me how to do this? And sometimes that is appropriate.
Right.
I guess it's just another version of, be generous with what you accept and miserly with what you put out, or something like that. So be aware that other people may not be there or may not enjoy spending all their time trying to help you with what's essentially is your project that you've come up with, that they didn't plan on spending the all of CoCoFEST Saturday working on your project. And so hopefully there's not too many people in that position, but like I said, it is possible to kind of diminish someone else's CoCoFEST experience by putting too much demands on their time. And what is too much? Well, I guess it depends, but especially if you're asking for support on a free project, you should probably tread lightly. Anyway, well, now that we've said that, for those of you who want to reply, then please do feel free to send email to feedback, FEEDBACK, at CoCoCrew.org, and we will be sure to file that appropriately and possibly respond later. All right, well, that's probably enough of that, so we'll break it here and, like I said, give you afterwards Neil's Corner and whatever parting thoughts we have, that sort of thing.
Every day, a color computer is abandoned or abused. They live in the dark recesses of garages, basements, storage sheds, barns, and attics, waiting for someone to help. Hi, I'm Helen Bleeding Heart. Please say you'll be the answer for CoCo suffering the effects of extreme temperature, overexposure to ultraviolet light, and conditions unfit for electronics. These CoCos need your help. Please call 888-6883 or go online and join the Color Computer Preservation Society with a monthly gift right now. For just $18 a month, you can rescue CoCos from their abusive environments, provide repair of damaged parts, administer retro bright treatments, and most of all, provide love. Call or sign up online in the next 30 minutes, and we'll send you a photo of a CoCo being lovingly reconditioned by the CCPS. And you'll receive this beautiful tote bag that declares, I saved a CoCo. Yours for your generous, perpetual monthly gift. This is your chance to say, I won't sit by while a CoCo is wasting away. Please, won't you call or go online right now?
Welcome back to Neil's Corner on episode 94 of the CoCo Crew Podcast. This month, I'm going to talk about some Australian content. This game is called Space Marauder. It was coded back in 1987 by Craig Stewart. What's extra cool is that this game was the winner of the Australian CoCo Magazine Game Coding Contest in 1987. That's right, Australia had their own CoCo magazines too. Also on a side note, this wasn't Craig's only game contest he won. The first contest he won was a game called Pursuit he coded also for the Color Computer 3 the year before, in 1986. Space Marauder is an original arcade space shooter style game, featuring two main playing levels. On the first level, you want to destroy asteroids and collect fuel pods. On the second level, it gets a little more serious. You want to destroy fireballs and the mothership, which is the Marauder, and will take 20 direct hits to destroy it. What makes this game extra challenging is you have to shoot the enemies with direct hits near the center of them. Otherwise, if you shoot near the sides, a bunch of sparks just fly out and making it more difficult to get around them. For controls, you use the left joystick port to fly your ship. You can move up, down, left, right, which helps dodge enemies and objects that can damage your shields. Keep in mind your shields are non-renewable, so once they're gone, they're gone. Joystick button is for firing, and spacebar toggles your wing lasers. Beware though, as wing lasers use more power. Space Marauder requires a Color Computer 3 with 128K memory, joystick and cassette, or disk drive or any other disk emulator you may have nowadays. You can also use DriveWire. If you want to check this game out, you can fetch a copy of it from the Color Computer Archives website. There you have it, another game for you to play on your CoCo 3 if you haven't already. Until next month, happy CoCo gaming and retro forever.
Now, if there is any dedicated group of old computer users, it is certainly the people who still love their CoCo, the Tandy Color computer.
Well, can you blame us? It is the best 8-bit computer ever. We will always love our CoCo. Well, it's that time again. We have reached the end of episode 94 on the CoCo Crew Podcast. As usual, I'd like to thank our host John Linville for procuring all the news articles and providing us with informative tech segments. Mike Rowan for painstakingly editing the podcast and creating all those fun commercials you hear. Although this month I did the editing, so please send any complaints about editing to me. I'd also like to thank Boise Pete, our CoCo historian. He remembers it, so you don't have to. Last but not least, all of you who listen and support us each month. We also really do appreciate your feedback. Well, until next month, happy CoCoing and retro forever.
It's a blast from the past.
Please listen carefully.
CoCo. 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 CoCo.
Dance like there's no tomorrow.
What is this crazy rock and roll music anyway? It's a blast from the past.
Dance, dance, dance. Dance, dance, dance.
CoCo. CoCo.